Okay, and we're live. Welcome, George from Australia. Welcome to YesToHellWith.com. We just met. I'm Bo Johnson, and it's a pleasure to meet you, sir. How are you today in Australia?
It's sunny in Sydney, literally. That's not just catchphrase. The weather's getting cool, but I'm excited because I've got a group of people in Australia and in Europe. We've got a couple of members in Europe, and what we're doing is we're challenging. We take the system to challenge it, and it's like people can get the freedom. The reason why I chose Beyond Freedom is because getting to somewhere is okay, but really we want to get beyond it and enjoy the whole results of the experience and the journey.
Okay.
So,
well, I'm going to ask you a question about that. Beyond Freedom, is that your organization?
Yes.
Okay. And so, what is the purpose of that organization, Beyond Freedom, in Australia? What do you do?
I teach people how to set up a private foundation, private trusts, and the foundation is basically to pay zero income tax, because everyone pays tax on petrol, clothing, food, coffee, right? But we have a system here from the ATO, the Australian Taxation Office, a manual, which is a rule book that allows us to set up a not-for-profit entity and to be income tax exempt.
Okay.
And the beautiful thing about it is on their forms, it says, when you've completed this form, do not send it in to us.
Okay.
That is the most bizarre thing that everyone they can't comprehend. That I don't have to tell the ATO that I've done this. No, they tell you on their form. So,
right. All right. So now, with respect to Yes to Hell With and the Liberty Dialogues, how did you come to learn about Yes to Hell With and the Liberty Dialogues? How did that come about?
What we're doing here is we have come to appreciate the fact that since 1973, the Australian government and every organisation, so we call it what they call a GovCorp, government corporation. Every GovCorp agency in Australia has an ABN, and the weirdest thing is it's all registered. All Australian companies, GovCorp companies, are registered in the District of Columbia, owned by the SEC in America.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So we don't really have we have no legitimate government.
say that one more time, and say it very slowly and clearly, specifically.
Okay. Right. Since 1973, the Prime Minister, Gough Whitlam, who eventually got sacked, the government set up a registered organisation, which is called the Commonwealth of Australia, whatever name Australian government is called, whatever subsections, departments, they're all registered, have ABNs, you can look up ABNs here, all registered in the District of Columbia in America and owned by the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission.
SEC. All right, that's fascinating. Yes. So what you just said is that you effectively do not have a government of the people, it's a corporation.
Correct.
Okay. So when did you hear about the Yes to Hell With and Liberty Dialogues? How did that come about for you personally?
Because I was following about 4 or 5 people on a regular basis, because the information they had was very pertinent to what we need here in Australia when we challenge councils, utility companies, any government agency. Even the police force have an ABN and they're corporations. So when we found out that the councils and the GovCorps had ABNs and they needed a contract in order to deal with us, not through the straw person, the name that they created, I started to challenge by questions. And I started just a question saying, can you please provide proof of claim? So we've got a document called, a manual called Living in the Private. So we've been following that, using that. I got that from England, a lot of the stuff from England, because even the Weiss Trust handbook on how to create a trust. Whoop. Oh, that's better, yeah. Okay, how to create a private trust. In America, it said everything is based on English law. So I figured if it's English law, because the Constitution is from England. The American Constitution, the Australian Constitution, every constitutional country in the world is based on the Constitution of England. Now, they have the Constitution of Australia, but when I started to use the challenging, the councils, the tax department, I never told anyone not to do it. I said, you must learn what your stand is. So teaching the standing, going over the same thing over and over, and then challenging through questions the GovCorps as to their authority, jurisdiction. Didn't know about the obligation aspect of it until I saw your yestotellwith.com, because that's now made it very clear, because it gave me a solid construct of the three aspects now I put into all our documents that we serve anyone who's coming after, saying, oh, you owe us this. Well, can you please provide the proof of claim? And
Right.
then when you popped up with the authority, jurisdiction, and obligation, I thought, this is perfect. So then I started to record your stuff and turn it into text, feed it into my chat, and the chat said, this is in harmony with what I'm teaching, Beyond Freedom's teaching anyway.
Mm-hmm. Say that one more time. Say that again. ChatGPT told you what?
ChatGPT, and my one, I've given it nickname Ned. And the purpose of Ned is the outlaw Ned Kelly in Australia in the 1800s.
Okay.
So just for a bit of fun, I'd call it Ned. So my Ned turned around, and when I put what you were saying into the chat, it said, this is in harmony with what you're teaching.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, now let me ask you a question, because this is relevant to you using the Liberty Dialogues. You recently received the Liberty Dialogues.
Yes.
And you told me before the call that we started that you have yet to upload them into ChatGPT. I'm going to send you a couple of documents that instruct you what to do and how to go about using ChatGPT to train it. And
Perfect.
I want to see, George, if you get different answers than what you're getting now. And I dare say you're probably going to get better answers. Now, having said that, I also want to work with you, and we'll get back to our conversation in a second, uploading the letters that you're currently using, have ChatGPT look at them in the framework of the Liberty Dialogues and ask it what revisions will improve and strengthen your position. I think you're going to get some incredible results. And that brings me to something I want to get into heavily with you. And I'm gonna share my screen, so bear with me for a second. This is my first time on Substack. I'm gonna find where I need to go. So let me just check first. 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. 1 second. I'm going to share the screen. Australia. I'm going to share this. All right, now I'm going to read this to the audience because I want them to hear what you said when I asked you online what you were about.
Yep.
Can you see the screen? Okay.
Yes, I can.
It says, I work with individuals and business owners through Beyond Freedom, which is your organization, helping them understand and apply a structured process to challenge authority, jurisdiction, and obligation using what we call the Liberty Dialogues. Rather than arguing or asserting, we teach people to ask precise, lawful questions that require proof, which shifts the entire dynamic. Through this approach, we've seen people grow significantly in knowledge, confidence, and courage, moving from uncertainty to standing firm in their position. In practical terms, this has led to real outcomes, including stopping unlawful entry, halting enforcement actions, and having matters withdrawn or ignored when proper proof is demanded. The Liberty Dialogues give people clarity, structure, and the confidence to engage without fear, and that has been the biggest transformation. All right, now I'm going to come back to you, I hope. Can you still see me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so let me see if I can come back. I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I want to look at you. Now, listen, George, you and I are relational people. I know that already after 5 minutes of talking with you. And so without even using the full impact of the Liberty Dialogues, and I'm going to help you with that, you're achieving success. And I'm going to be a bit long-winded for a second because I'm going to set the stage for our conversation for the viewers that see this, okay, in Australia and throughout the world, because the Liberty Dialogues is a growing phenomenon right now globally, and people are learning what it does, and it's applicable globally. What you're doing is admirable, and I acknowledge you, George. My hat is off to you, because what's happening is you are taking this content down to the regular Joe and Jane, real, genuine, freedom-loving people, and you're applying the Liberty Dialogues concepts, and you're getting immediate results. All right, so you're showing something on the screen right now. I'm going to ask you about that in a second. But I want you to tell me personally, when you're dealing with people that you're helping, do you find that most of them, prior to applying the Liberty Dialogues framework, were fearful? They were unaware, uninformed, unintelligible about the content, and they didn't know where to begin to assert their rights. Is that a safe representation?
Partly, because I prepared them beforehand with what I've been learning for years. What Liberty Dialogue gave me was it gave me clarity as to the most important things that I've been saying the whole 4 years. Ask questions, and if you make a statement, at the end of it, always say, I'm not sure if you understand what I'm saying. Always finishing with the question, so we're not putting our foot in it and getting caught in any, I'm stuffed now. So when the Liberty Dialogue came along and asked those 3 specific points of authority, jurisdiction, and obligation, made it so clear with all the fees and fines that people get. So everything that I've collected, what it did, the Liberty Dialogue made it so clear of the 3 major points, then I can grow and add to what I'm already teaching. So I add in, hey, are you aware that the High Court ruling shows that you have to listen to the authority of the High Court? Is your authority greater than the authority of the High Court of Australia? So that's the type of questioning that we're putting in our documents.
Okay, good. Let me pause you for a second, because I think you answered my question. I asked you about the preparedness, the fear, the lack of awareness, the lack of knowledge of people. And you said that you prepared them prior to the Liberty Dialogue. So I want to get to this, because many people in America fall under the trap of the government presumption, the prevailing, often fraudulent presumption of the government. And we are like on a conveyor belt and processed through the system, stamped, 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 stamped. It's a conveyor belt. So you prepared your people before the Liberty Dialogues, but they were fearful then. They had a lack of knowledge, and they were not well equipped to move forward. You trained them, and now you have the Liberty Dialogues that develops the core content even more. Is that a fair assessment?
That is correct, because what your system is doing is enhances And as my members grew in confidence, some can take a month, like 30 days. Others will take 9 months.
Right.
It depends on their level of fear.
Right.
But because I'm always going over the similar product, the same issues, and reiterating and making everyone comfortable in our stand, then when the Liberty Dialogue came along, it was like the light got brighter, like
Right.
all the lights turned on rather than just one little lamp.
Right.
So that now my members are now going, I want to fight this.
Right. That's excellent. George, that's excellent. Let me give you an example. This is why I'm pressing on this, because when people watch and listen to what you're saying as a leader, dealing with regular folks, having them prevail over the system, the same thing is happening here. And I'm going to give you one example, and I want your thoughts on this. I had a subscriber to Yes to Hell With who used the Liberty Dialogues to challenge a traffic violation in a state court in Arkansas. And it's the first time he ever went to court. And let me tell you the bottom line of what happened. He went in, and the judge was so impressed with his delivery. He didn't sound like a radical whack job. He was professional, polished. The questions were on tee with the legal system. And it was so good that the prosecutor was flustered and said, "This is just a traffic ticket. We need to stop this. This is a trap." And the man looked at the judge and said, "Is this not also due process? Should this be any different as far as due process?" And the judge granted him full discovery on criminal and civil with respect to what he was denied originally. Now, let me tell you what happened. There was a lady in the court prior to his case, and she stuck around to watch, and she had pleaded guilty. And she was just stamped on that conveyor belt, going through the system of presumption, paying the fine. She went back before the judge and said, "I'd like to reverse my guilty plea. I want a jury trial." George, that's empowering. And I know you have examples, and I want to hear of those real life examples. So having set the stage, give me some examples of how people are prevailing in Australia. Be very specific and on point.
Okay. One of my fast growing members, I call him Nicholas, he had studied another system on how to fight the court. He went in the first time, it didn't work. Went in the second time, he went back and studied with this other guy, and he came back with, and I've got all the documents that he's got, but I already had them before he joined. So he wanted to go further and say, "I don't want to pay income tax anymore." So he's still part of the system, but he now uses a section of the system that I've taught him, the book of rules that the Australian Taxation Office and the Australian government allegedly provide, right? Without having to file. We don't have to turn around and tell them or send them information. So anyway, Nicholas goes to court using an affidavit, which we use on certain documents. And he stood up, he said, he was asked, "Are you Mr. Nicholas Curry?" The only identifying feature in Australia is Mr. is the all caps entity, the strawman entity. And he was asked, "Are you Mr. Nicholas Curry?" And he answered, he said, "No, Mr. Nicholas Curry is in Rookwood Cemetery." He was speaking about his grandfather. We learnt here in Australia, we do not use our surname.
Okay.
So we are either, as you saw, George of the Gallus estate or George of the family, whatever.
Sure.
So we now only use our given name because that's all we are. And that came from a lawyer in Johnny Carson's show. He said, everything is hearsay unless our signature is on it. Okay. So Nicholas went in, challenged, and he said, "Oh, what the evidence?" I said, "I haven't seen the evidence." So I create questions for our members, and a few of them have gone to court, and asked the prosecutor, he says, I haven't received any evidence that you've got against me, and I'm asking you for proof of claim. So he said, oh, all right. So Nicholas Estate case, when he came back after watching the video of him not having a mask while exercising, he'd stopped, had a cigarette and a coffee. He asked the prosecutor, he says, show me in legislation where it states I cannot stop for a break during exercise. Went back in, he says, inadmissible. He stated, he said, Your Honour, the evidence is inadmissible because, explaining, can you provide in legislation? The magistrate looked at the prosecutor, shook their head and said, oh, well, we have to dismiss the case because there is no legislation.
Right. Well, very good. So in that example, would you agree that if the state is compelled even a little bit and they realize, oh, now I have to work, now I have to use my law degree, now I have to extend some effort, that if people started doing that and the cases started backlogging, because of that challenge, overcoming fear, overcoming a lack of knowledge, that the system would actually have to account for manpower, resources, hours on cases and say, no, we'll dismiss. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that because and as the document, as there's a mature guy in New Zealand called Bill Turner. He's been fighting the system for 25 years. And eventually he went to court and he quoted a scripture. And one of the scriptures is like, we're not following political, but anyway, look, just to keep it succinct. The documents, he stated very clearly, the court is not the building, the court is the paperwork. Every prosecutor comes in with paperwork. If we have the paperwork and the evidence in paperwork, all magistrates and judges respect the fact that we've done our research and we know what we're talking about. That is what we need clarity for.
Right.
Hence, my members, and because I do Zoom meetings 2 nights a week, not just 1 night a week. So they come, the same 18, 19, the regular ones, they come every week. And if they can't make it, they text me and say, hey, can't make it. So I apologize. I said, I'll be sending you what we've discussed, the summary, the video. You will get everything. You will not miss out. Right. And because of that, and each little step, they've grown in confidence to the point where now they're, instead of going like this, they're going, oh, take a deep breath of relief.
Right. They understand.
Yes.
They understand. Let me go back to the premise then, because like the gentleman named James who fought in court last week and prevailed to the extent that he has so far, he's emboldened. He had people coming up to him after court asking questions. He went into the clerk's office and they were applauding him for what he did. Regular Americans working in the court, stamping those papers every day, and they see an American walk through the door and prevail against one of those lawyers that works for the government. Now, let me get back to you then, because I want to focus on this a little bit more. What example have you used with the Liberty Dialogues where you've seen success using authority, jurisdiction, status, standing, obligation, and enforcement?
What we have here, what we learnt from Peter Wilson and the English, is that they've got a GDPR, which is a General Data Protection Act. And our act here is the Privacy Act. And it came into force about 4 or 5 years ago because of data breach in Australia to Optus. And it made it very clear that the Privacy Act is very important for data protection. Hence, what we've found is, and we've learned, that anyone outside of the department like Revenue New South Wales or Service New South Wales is a third-party interloper with an ABN acting as a corporation. We have the High Court ruling in Australia of 2015 that any government agency that has an ABN comes under the Consumer and Corporations Act, and they have to abide by that. So the high courts have given us some really good ammunition in a loving way. But what we normally do is we show when we do anything, and what you said about James, it sounded like why he got the applause is because he did it with honor.
Sure.
And that is what I teach. Do everything with honor. So, and every time we open up, it says, all my members, I always state, we are blessed and highly favored because we come in harmony. We come together in unison to want to take the suppression off our shoulders, not to fight them, but it's a spiritual fight, not a physical.
Right. Well, very good. Let's go back then to the Liberty Dialogues and tell me specifically how you incorporate them with your teachings now, where the rubber meets the road.
The first one is the authority. Now we have, where I am in New South Wales, we've got an uncle and a nephew, and they're the Minns family. And it's common knowledge, so I'm not hiding any information or names. So one of them is the Premier of New South Wales, and the other one is the CEO of the Revenue New South Wales. They collect money for all fines in behalf of, as a third-party debt collector. And as a debt collector, buying data is a breach of the Privacy Act. The screenshot of, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Do you see me?
Okay, I'll keep talking. So we challenge Revenue New South Wales as to their authority. So where does your authority come from if you're a third-party interloper with an ABN under the Competition and Consumer Act? So which is, what jurisdiction are you applying? So what Liberty Dialogue has given me the clarity on, in the past, we used to say, what jurisdiction do you have over me? And that was a trap. So what we do now, are we there still?
I still have you.
Okay, good. I've just gone good. Okay. So your dialogue makes it really specific as to the authority. Please show the authority. But instead of, as I said before, instead of we're defending, what authority do you have over me, or what jurisdiction over my body and my land, is not as effective as the way what I learned from you, which is, please can you show me where your authority comes from and what and who it applies to?
Right.
Leaving our personal service out of it, our personal tense out of it, because that entraps us. So when we take things and we start to say, apply it to me, we start to get emotional. We start losing focus. And then we start holding our breath, which just causes fear and to explode and expand because of the carbon dioxide overload. So I teach members, when you ask a question and you pause after the question, the purpose of the pause is to have another nice, lovely breath, because they have to prove that they've got the authority, jurisdiction, or obligation, not us. So we've now, my members, with your clarity, those three specific phrases, and I use the word phrases because it expands when you open it up. It stops them from becoming personal, and it now gives them clarity as to, it's not over me because they have no jurisdiction over the living, breathing man, only the construct that they've created in the form of a license or the entities, because it's all entities. So we're not an entity, we are living flesh and blood. So then that has made it so much clearer, and we were working reasonably well until when I saw your video and the jurisdiction, the authority, jurisdiction, obligation. I just grabbed it and I said, I turned around, put it in the chat, and I said, chat, I want you to turn around and give me the teaching frame for this. And I sent you one of the documents that we use and it made it in harmony. He said it is really the same train of thought that what you're teaching with George and Beyond Freedom. So,
well, very good. Now, listen, I'm gonna make an offer to you, George, and that is, I wanna. I'll be very brief. I want to spend time with you and show you how to use the Liberty Dialogues within ChatGPT, and I want to get your documents and upload them and do some work on your behalf, and send you some updated constructs, some frameworks to use, and I think it will accelerate the learning curve. And I want to applaud you. I want to acknowledge you, sir, because I think something that is inherently within your mindset as a coach, as a human being, is to get people acclimated with the language, the word, the meaning, to step into that venue and to start using it so that their mindset and their heart set becomes one with the knowledge, and therefore they have the subsequent wisdom to step out and say, with dignity, with honor, with love, with respect, which is what I teach in my calls with the private members on Yes to Hell With, is I teach them when a policeman comes to your door, when an IRS agent comes to the door, they know squat. They're just doing their job. And you're going to be the first person that gives them the ray of light that says, whoa, there's something to this I'm missing. And they start to think, even if only internally, oh, I don't know how to answer that. And that sounds very professional, and it sounds very logical. So you are doing something that is incredible, and it's needed. It's needed in Australia, New Zealand, the Netherlands, in America, everywhere. And I acknowledge you, sir. I humbly acknowledge you, and I appreciate that you've done that.
There's one. Thank you. There's one document that I have. Let me just. Yeah. No, I've just turned around. Can you hear me, or have I stuffed it up?
I can still hear you.
Okay, good. No, okay. I just I should have. Anyway,
while you're doing that, I'm going to go back to
here we are.
My screen. I'm going to share something. I want to stress this before our conversation with you today. You sent me this. You sent me Section 1 authority. Please explain what specific act of Parliament creates the authority relied upon in this matter. What section and subsection is being relied upon? What lawful authority permits you to issue or enforce this claim? Is the claim based upon? And then it goes down through several sections. Then Section 2, jurisdiction. Please explain what jurisdiction is being applied, statutory, contractual, administrative. What instrument establishes jurisdiction over the recipient? How does this jurisdiction lawfully apply in this matter? Section 3, obligation. Please explain what lawful obligation creates the alleged liability. What activity is claimed to trigger that obligation? What agreement or instrument establishes such obligation? Section 4, demand for proof of claim. All right, so that may be what you were referring to as far as wanting to. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to come back to you. Now, I think if we go one step further and we do authority, jurisdiction, status, standing, obligation, and enforcement, that's the complete circle. Yep. And I think that you will get greater depth, and the breadth of the application of what you can be doing is going to be much stronger. Now, I want to go back to something that you mentioned, and that is the use of questions. I'm a writer. I've written 9 or 10, maybe 12 books. And one of the key things that I live by is that he who asks questions has control. And it is a maxim of a successful life. And even those who are flustered and troubled and are caught in the trap, if they just pause and they think for a moment, say, excuse me, 1 second. And then they pose a question. They've regained their composure, and they've asked an intelligible question that's germane to the issue at hand, and it allows them to begin asserting and I saw your document, the title, the issue of self-governance, the matter of self-governing in life, and it's by virtue of asking questions. Speak to that and tell me how you teach your students to ask questions.
when any letter is received, I asked the members, I said, okay, who is it? So this is what I do. Who received what letter? Where did you get the letter from? They tell me. And what name is on there? So, okay. Is that the name on your driver's license, or is that you personally? No, it's on the driver's license. So it's not you then. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay. So what's the obligation? I've got to pay this, this, and this. It says, have you seen the subject matter? There's no subject matter in any of the fines that we receive. Like, for example, the water. This is the usage of your water. You've just told me. So, have they just asked you the usage of your water, or have they asked you need to pay for us providing you the water? Never have they provided anything. The only thing that they really charge us for is the meter, because in the system, all the water is free. They just turn around and control it, and they charge us to control it, like all the roads here in Australia. It's a federal roads, but they give the toll companies permission to go and rip us off. So it's about question them. So by them, I always do this on a regular basis, ask them the questions so they get to hear, I'm asking questions, I'm asking questions, I'm asking questions. The more clarity, then I turn around, I go, now let's discuss this on Thursday night, and I'll put it in a question form in the document, and then we go through it in written, and then I send them the copy that evening, so they now can go through the questionnaire that I put on paper.
Very good. So they instinctively, intuitively begin to understand that their lack of understanding of a given issue, be it water, roads, what have you, driver's license, mandates that they query themselves and say, I don't understand this. I need to ask the question. Your education is invaluable because it starts them doing that so that they are prepared to ask officials questions. Is that a fair statement? Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
We're going to go to my screen again in a second. And what I'd like you to do is to think of a specific issue that impacts the common man and woman in Australia right now. And we're going to use the Liberty Dialogues on my computer. And I want to show you how it works for me. And then we'll get together and I'll help you with this to help your students. And then I want to get to the 500,000 foot level and war game this with you and figure out how we help more Australians understand the impact of the Liberty Dialogues framework. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So another thing I want to share, by the way, is I in my monthly calls with my Inner Circle and Patriot members, we are discussing the import of language, definitions, meanings, and specifically how that relates to our minds and hearts, how we react when we see a letter from the IRS, how we react when we get a knock on the door and the police is there. And it changes everything. And without the knowledge and experience, we tend to react as opposed to being proactive.
Correct.
So what you're doing is you're preempting a lot of the mistakes that people would tend to make, and which is the reason I'm discussing this in my course today. And George, I'm going to make a promise to you. I'm going to send you the recordings of my calls and the language curriculum that I have so that you can use it with your students if you deem it appropriate. Okay.
I believe it would be appropriate because I've already started using your structure because it, excuse me, it makes it clearer because now I've got the three things which you've now going to show me into 5, but I started with the 3 because I bring my members in gently, slowly, and then I ask them, how do you want to handle this? So when I send them a notice for them to send a notice, I said, do you want it in a nice soft feather duster, or would you like to use Thor's hammer?
See?
Okay. And
All right.
so I let everyone know they've got an option. So how
Right.
would you like to approach this? He said, do you feel confident enough to do the Thor's hammer? Because they're going to come back at you. And they all aware that every letter we get from any GovCorp agency is a computer program, and the person behind there goes, press A. Reminder, press B. Hey, you forgot. Press C. If you don't pay soon, you'll be penalized. Press D. Now we could take this and disconnect you, blah, blah, blah. I said, and the members finally get it, and they go, yeah, it's just a computer program. And I've fed them all these little things for so long, they're now responding in a beautiful way of, yeah, that's just a program. I'm not fearful of that.
There you go.
So
That's a great illustration. That's a great
everything
illustration, George.
So yeah, I'm. That's why I do 2 nights a week. It takes a lot of effort, but it's worth it.
The calls that I'm doing, and you guys are more than welcome to come to the calls for the Liberty Dialogues, you and your members, and how to use them. You have the Liberty Dialogues, and that's the requirement that I have. Just because of the litigious nature of America, even though I'm in Mexico, I protect myself and others and the platform by educating people with the Liberty Dialogues so that they understand how to get the ammunition to prevail in battle. Now, having said that, I'm gonna set the stage about America for a second, and I want to see if it's the same in Australia. In America, there are gurus who have any number of approaches that are supposed to prevail to get you out of the system. No more taxes and being a national or this or that or bonds and offset discharge. And I've tried a lot of that, and I wasted a lot of time and money, and it was very painful. And as you know, I went to prison, and I was well prepared for the argument on taxes, but that's a different story. My point is this. I think generally people in America have been so burned by the experience of these alleged gurus that they don't know who to trust or what to trust. So I'm going to pause for a second and ask you, do you have that same syndrome in Australia where people have been burned by gurus peddling something that doesn't work?
Absolutely. Even some of our, excuse me, with all due respect to some of the groups, we call them common law groups here, their information is still limited because they've got a big platform and you've got to follow it. And I say, yeah, that's good, but it doesn't really give a big solution. So I've been following Peter Wilson and Exit the Matrix in England. He said, we were fighting a whole lot of things until we realized everything is about the data protection. And when people start, when GovCorps or what they call third-party debt collecting company agencies, which our one is the Revenue New South Wales, it's a third-party interloper. So the members are getting used to that. So yes, we have all of that too. What my members appreciate is they heard me 3 years ago from an interview that I did, but where I was then was nowhere near where I am now.
Sure.
I've used now Peter Wilson's, the Privacy Act, expanded on. We have an issue with the fire ants in Gold Coast, which is Queensland. As soon as I got this idea. So this has been my life journey. And I thought, I've got all this information, and I thought, I don't even know what to do with it. I've got to leave a legacy. What legacy? I don't know what legacy I need to leave. And then I met 2 guys that helped build the website, and they ran it for me until it was like, it's not enough. You are most people are restricted, and they're good at what they do, but I knew there had to be more. Similar to you, when I saw your first videos, I'm thinking like, this is this next part that I need. It enhances what I'm already doing. It enhances what Peter Wilson's teaching in England. It's like they're getting compensation from the debt collecting that comes through magistrates' courts. not going after the bid bond and all the birth certificate bond and everything else, because that's confusing. I've got SEDM, the whole document downloaded on my website. I've got the redemption manual, the 600 pages, whatever. And I go, you want to do that? You go and look at it in your own time. It's too heavy. And besides, all the stuff up to chapter 5, it's all filling. Like there's a product in Australia called, you could put a hole in the wall and you use spac filler to fill it. Okay, it's just a hole filler.
All right.
They call it that everything that's not useful is a spac filler. It's just filling a hole of vacantness. Right. And I go, so with what Peter Wilson teaches, what Carly teaches, some of the English, they're in harmony with what they're talking about, right? So I get that. What they didn't have was the clear, defined structure that you created, which my chat loved, and it said, "This is so in harmony with what you're teaching, George, with Beyond Freedom members." So that's why I sent you the document. That was before I got your Liberty Dialogue. So I've been using your stuff for about 4 or 5 months.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned that, by the way. I wanted to understand the climate in Australia with respect to the gurus. My point with the situation in America is ironically, you are using language that I'm a bit hesitant to use with respect to, for example, straw man. Now, I believe in the straw man. I don't know that given the state of the general population that I deal with right now, that they're equipped like your students ostensibly are to argue something like that, because we don't even understand the rudimentary basics of authority, jurisdiction, status, standing, obligation, and enforcement. And so that element is critical, that basic knowledge and awareness, so that therefore the Jameses of the world from Arkansas and Ohio and et cetera can step forward and say, I understand how your system works. And I understand that this prosecutor needs to prove subject matter jurisdiction and personam jurisdiction. Honor, would you please direct him to prove jurisdiction? Until Americans are able to do that, then all these extraneous issues, SEDM and all these other websites that are voluminous with content, 7 lifetimes they would not be able to get through this content, right? I mean, their documents are 600-700 pages long sometimes.
Correct.
And it's too much. What we're able to do is to apply some basics to real life situations and have people equipped to go in. And that's what you've done. So having said that, we've set the stage to go back to the screen sharing. Did you think of an example that affects the common man in Australia that you want to tackle with ChatGPT and Liberty Dialogues? Can you name one?
There's private property.
Okay, let's do this. 1 second. Let me pull up the screen.
While you're doing that, there was a whole lot of different private property signs, and they all had, please show me a wedding signature, show me the magistrate's warrant, signed from a judge, blah 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 blah. And then the High Court ruling of which I mentioned to you, High Court ruling from Commonwealth versus Unipingu, the First Nation. If we learn in the last 6 months that all the GovCorps in Australia have no jurisdiction over the land here of the First Nation, they acknowledge it in every event by saying, we wish to acknowledge the First Nation as the custodians, original custodians of the land, or the original owners. That's an admission of, so what do you have authority of?
Okay, so let's go back to the basic premise, because I want you to give me a basic premise to enter into ChatGPT to use the Liberty Dialogues. What is the basic challenge with respect to those yard signs that you would say, frame this in the context of the Liberty Dialogues, and give me the specific issue, please?
Do you want to do with a tax issue or with the private property?
With the yard signs. You brought up private property.
Yes, private property. Okay. We have a private property sign, which we use the Constitution of Enclosed Lands Protection Act, 1901 of New South Wales.
Okay, so let me do this. People in Australia are using yard signs to challenge the authority. Is that correct?
Correct.
Of what? Of what
Fire
entity?
Fire ant people coming on with police to spray poison.
Oh, fire and
Fire ant.
police.
Fire ant. As in the fire ant.
Spell that for me. Fire ant. Oh, okay.
A-N-T.
Ants.
Yes.
A-N-T. Fire ants.
Yeah.
Fire ants and what?
Fire
ants
ants
police?
and yeah, the fire ant, the people who spray the fire ants, which are the, what do they call them?
Let's just use fire ant sprayers.
Yeah,
Fire ant sprayers.
Yeah.
And the police?
And the police who are there to protect them and help them get onto the property.
Okay, very good. Okay, very good. I appreciate your patience with my trying to hear. People in Australia are using yard signs to challenge, let me just change this, the authority of fire ant sprayers and, one second.
Police. Police.
The
Because
police
they bring the police with them.
that are there to protect the sprayers.
Yeah.
Now, and the signs are doing what? The signs are challenging the authority, right?
No, stopping the police.
Oh, stopping the police.
Yes.
And the signs are stopping the police. Now, what is the issue then that you want to challenge ChatGPT and the Liberty Dialogues? The credibility of the signs?
Yes, that's a good point. Yes.
Okay, so let's do this. People in Australia are using yard signs to challenge the authority of fire ant sprayers. I'm going to check my spelling here. And the police that are there to protect the sprayers, and the signs are stopping the police. Now, before I enter this in the Liberty Dialogues context, you mentioned some kind of law back in the early 1900s. What was the significance of that?
The Enclosed Lands Protection Act is anyone who has a sign, a fence, even if they've got a natural boundary with no fence. It's Act 1901.
Okay.
And it's New South Wales.
Okay.
And the other one?
New South Wales.
Yep.
And you're saying that law, that Protection Act of 1901 is for the protection of the property owners?
Yes. With.
Okay, very good. And the other one?
The High Court of Australia.
Okay.
Ruling.
Go ahead.
High Court of Australia ruling. Private property.
Okay.
Protection. Private property protection. 2025.
Okay, very good. All right, listen. So this is just an example of what the Liberty Dialogues can do within the authority, jurisdiction, status, standing, obligation, and enforcement. And George, I want to add, under the great backdrop, the huge umbrella of presumptive authority to do what the hell the government wants to do.
Yep.
So I'm gonna read this again. People in Australia using yard signs to challenge the authority of fire ant sprayers and the police that are there to protect the sprayers, and the signs are stopping the police. I referenced the Enclosed Lands Protection Act of 1901, New South Wales, and the High Court of Australia ruling private property protection of 2025. Now I'm going to give a command to ChatGPT. Please respond to the rights inherent of the people
Correct.
to enforce their dominion over their property and structure how citizens
Don't use the word citizen.
Australia.
Yep.
What's that?
Just use the word people of Australia.
Okay. And citizens, people of Australia
Not the word. Yep.
No, just bear with me for 1 second and take confidence in their inherent authority. Now, I'm not going to quibble right now with words like citizens with you.
I apologize.
I'm just going to enter this. No, that's all right. It's just that, and we can talk about that later on. I'm going to give you a very specific reason why. Now, do you know what I just did? Can you read that and do you understand? Do you have any objections with me entering this into ChatGPT?
Go ahead. You have my permission.
Okay. So we're doing it in the context of the Liberty Dialogues. Please respond and do it in the context of the Liberty Dialogues. Here we go, George. I appreciate your patience, sir.
Oh, you're fine. Every time I get ready for a meeting, no matter how tired I am, I'm always excited to get started. So I've been looking forward to this.
Well, very good. Well, it's certainly my pleasure. Now, it asks me for responses, and I really don't like this, and it knows that.
Which one do you
choose not to participate.
Oh,
give
I've not done that before.
me an answer. Sometimes I'm a little more colorful. All right.
Especially when you're not recording.
Now it's messing with me. Give me an answer to the Australia issue presented. All right, let's see what we get from this. Hopefully it won't go back. Oh, I refuse to say so. The answer is I do not consent and I choose not to participate unless and until lawful authority, jurisdiction, obligation. Okay, so I'm gonna do something, George, because I know what's going on here, and I'm gonna preempt this. So 1 second. Sometimes ChatGPT goes through those. Now I'm going to send this to you. I'm going to send all of it.
Excellent. Good. Because I love the first line, I do not consent, because I've got...
Here we go. In the Liberty Dialogues, go ahead. Let me read this generally. In the Liberty Dialogues content, the people must remember that property is one of the oldest and most fundamental forms of dominion. A home farm, business, or enclosed parcel of land is not public property. The starting point is simple. Private property creates a presumption of exclusion and not a presumption of entry. If a person owns or lawfully occupies land, others may enter, consent, warrant, etc. This is where the dialogues become powerful. The owner or occupier does not need to argue. They do not need to become emotional. They do not need to threaten. We've talked about that. They simply ask what specific act authorizes, etc., etc. The people do not need to win an argument. They know that they need only to require proof. If the entrant cannot identify the act, cannot explain the jurisdiction, cannot identify the section authorizing entry, and cannot produce a warrant or emergency basis, then the owner has every reason to withhold. So the key point for Australians is this: you are not required to surrender your property rights simply because someone arrives in uniform, arrives in a government vehicle, or claims they are authorized. Authority must be proven, jurisdiction proven, obligation proven. This is the Liberty Dialogues posture. Okay, so it's using all of them. Now I'm gonna choose. I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna see if it gives us something different. and hopefully it won't ask for 2 responses. Please respond again to the same scenario and expand by using the entire Liberty Dialogues order. Let me see if it knows what that is. All right, let me see what we get.
That's a powerful question. We have on our sign, we don't ask for a warrant or authority. We actually say, we tell them, it's in bold, we revoke all real rights of entry.
Okay, so here we go. We have jurisdiction, status, standing.
Oh, that's good.
Obligation. And then the 6th one is enforcement. Now, the umbrella of presumption is always there, and it is the primary enemy that I believe that we globally, the people of the world, have to defeat. The prevailing presumption that the bastards use to continue the conveyor belt mentality of our lives. Let me do one more thing. Let me say, I'm going to give it a hypothetical. Hypothetical. A police man and a sprayer ignore the signs under the. Do you guys have you have a constitution, right?
Yes, same as yours.
Australian Constitution.
Yep.
And the appropriate statutes and regulations. Bear with me. Indicate the immediate remedy for a property owner to prevail. Let's just see what it comes up with. Now, I don't know if you know this, George, but ChatGPT produces all motions, all letters, all procedures in accordance with statutes and regulations, and it will produce an entire case for any of your students to enforce if it should go that far.
Yep. Well, the paperwork, I've reiterated, the paperwork is the court, and if we present it the day before, it's like when you serve the papers, we serve the papers of the notice that we're providing them, notice of proof of claim. He said, and they're getting used to the idea because in England they use the email because they're time-stamped, but some of the politicians here are blocking the emails here, so we're going back to the letters or serve them, go to the office and serve it by hand. Okay,
very good. No, that's excellent. Yeah, there's always ways that they circumvent the initiatives of the people. So here's just an example, and we could spend hours doing this in refining the process. So I just want you to understand with this example, with how I do it, where we can start producing content that, if need be, can be more focused on the immediate problem if it escalates. Now, let me before I leave this screen, do you have any questions or observations?
No, everything is good. When it says you to whom it may concern, what I do for my members, I find the CEO of the company and we say, for example, to Chris Minns in your private capacity acting as CEO for Revenue New South Wales.
Right.
By putting them into their personal tense, we are going and challenging them because they're the ones who made the decision, not the corporation. We go after corporation, we can't win because a corporation, then we've got to go as our corporate name. And then you need lawyers. So without the lawyers, we don't need lawyers. We don't need, because we're allowed to stand, like you say, stand. Because I use a thing called an affidavit of standing, or a declaration in the form of an affidavit of standing. So it covers any presumption that they say an affidavit is a public issue by the government. Well, this is a declaration. You have a declaration of independence. Everyone declares whatever they want to say. So
Right.
I use a lot more than what I've shown you.
Right. Very good. No, that's good. Now,
So
if
we also
you
highlight. So in why we do the personal tense, it puts them on notice that they are committing a crime, because in Australia we've got in personal indemnity insurance that every GovCorp agent has, and if the insurance company finds out that they've committed fraud, deception, coercion, they lose their insurance claim. Now, Cal Washington in Canada has been using that, and I got that about a year and a half ago, and I add that to our what they call contract of personal indemnity, $10 million compensation if you turn around and trespass.
Are people being successful with that kind of enforcement?
Well, we have two particular cases where the police came and said, if you don't get out of my way, they showed the sign. It was an older sign, not as effective as the one we created last year. And the sergeant said, if you don't get out of my way, I'll arrest you. So using similar terminology, but not exactly the same construct, that you've got authority, jurisdiction, obligation, that you just made it clearer for me, but I use similar terminology. And both situations where the police were involved, we served them an email. We challenged them with the CPI, and they never continued to come back, or never even came, and they never showed their face again on both occasions.
So, George, do you think that they understood the distinction between their professional capacity and their personal liability?
Because we put that into their documents.
Right. Okay. Very good. All right. Let me ask you one more question, and then we'll close this conversation. And I very much appreciate your time, George. In America, I truly believe that the volitional idiots that run for office, whether they're movie stars or models or whatever, CEOs, and because they have a lot of money, they think they've arrived and they need to run for office. It's more of a popularity contest like you would have in a high school with a bunch of petty kids who's trying to one up everybody. So here's my point. I really believe that in America especially, it's a circus. And globally, I really think there are a lack of truly credible men and women with character and convictions that are running for office, who can look at me and you and everybody else that you and I try and help and say, I love the common man. I'm here for freedom and property rights, and I'll be damned if the government is going to run roughshod over the people. Those people are not running for office, and the system is preventing those kinds of people from running. So my point is this: we have volitional idiots who are as ignorant, if not more ignorant, than the American people, who are running for office, and then they learn the system, so they stay in office and they perpetuate the system, and they're even more ignorant about the cause of freedom and rights and what is just and true. And I want to get your comment about that and see if it's the same in Australia.
Absolutely. I'll give you a perfect example. John Howard was the Prime Minister. He lied about the children overboard, issue, the boats coming in, and the lie came out in the news. Now, the news media is controlled. I don't really care about that. Now, he lied, and then 2 weeks later, he was re-elected. Now, that proves to me that we have nothing to do with the election. When people go, I've never voted in my life. When people go and vote, they go, oh, you got to do this, got to do that. It never counted. They just now know who you are and where you live. It's just another form of that test that we're going to keep an eye on you. Thank you for telling us where you are. Now, John Howard, we had a guy his nickname was ScoMo. And in 1985 or 86, the court case, which is now being taken off air, the court case showed he was convicted of pedophile. Okay. Anyway, he moved on. John Howard created a suppression order of 99 years to protect all the pedophiles in Australia. A judge he says a judge knew there was a whole bunch of them, but he said, I can't make a ruling because he wasn't there to rule on anything. And that's stupid. Like, okay, fair enough. Okay, there's a process. So ScoMo, a couple of years ago, was put in position of Prime Minister.
Wow.
So every time I saw him go to a school, I cringed. I said, you take your filthy, dirty hands off those children, because that's what we've got to deal with.
Right.
There's no different.
This is a rhetorical question, but why does politics bring the worst out of a country? We do not get the best running.
Okay. The history is that the system and it made it very clear, the system is not broken. The system is designed this way. Okay. And I've known that for most of my life. So if the system's broken, and I turn around and I listen to Kerry Packer, who was the richest man in Australia at the time in 1991, he says, I've looked at your legislation and it says here, Parliament has no authority to look into my business affairs. And in 1998, when I freed myself from the system, he fought a 3-year court case of $40 million income tax claim, and the ATO got nothing. They didn't win. That spurred me on. So that was my 26-year journey. Then I looked into the ATO and it's got, hey, so I've realized every system has to provide a remedy. If there's a remedy, we've got to search for it. And I kept searching and searching and searching. Thankfully, with all the other groups in Australia that don't have the level that we've grown to, because I do this personally. I've grown personally because I want my members to have more than I just put in a private trust, you're protected. Here's a sign. Have a nice day. That's why I was attracted to what you talked about, because you keep talking and you do every day. You did it, like February, March, and you talked about it, and just a little snippet, and it was enough. It's like a canopy. I want more, and that's what my members are getting from me. I'm feeding them to the point where they're so confident. They, when I say we're blessed and highly favored, they put their little hearts up and, they applaud. And it's like, we only get an hour and a half. So I have what they call a coffee shop meeting in Sydney. And in 2 weeks' time, I'm doing a coffee shop tour up to Queensland to see all my members up there.
Very good.
Because this is what I've created is a family. And
that's
family...
Excellent.
What they say, charity starts with home. I'm allowed to be charitable. I can gift anything to anyone. These are all things that we're allowed to do. That's the remedy. The IRS are ready for this. The IRS are a registered company in Puerto Rico.
Right.
Not in America. They're just allowed to run in America with an ABN. So all these little things that I've heard from a few people, I grab and I go, okay, I've got to learn that. So that's basically my journey in life, to comprehend and say, not to get angry at them, to say, oh, I've got a crime that you've committed there, and do you know that it's 5-year imprisonment? So
that's good stuff.
I put the Crimes Act. This is what are you aware that you could be committing a crime if you're and I put in. And then I check legislation. I learn how to read it. It says it's enacted, but it was never enacted because it can't be, because the Crown, Australia broke away from the Queen in 1973. So that's why the land here was never owned. So our land protection signs, as soon as I created this new sign, and I thought about, and it was before I used chat. I put it on our website, and everyone started promoting it. In Gold Coast, there's a massive community that have all the signs from that one sign that someone had, and people come now take selfies with the sign because they've never seen a sign like it.
Right. No, that's excellent.
And so other organisations are using it to stop people coming on their property. It says the High Court, Commonwealth versus Yunupingu. It's a 65-year battle of the First Nation, like your American Indians, First Nation allowed to trespass with compensation.
Right.
That's a High Court
George,
ruling.
you bring up something that's critical, and it's an adage, it's a maxim that I believe in, and it's part of my makeup, and that is a man who does not defend his rights or know how to preserve his rights has no rights. And what you've done before the Liberty Dialogues is you've taught and trained, groomed, coached, use the word you want, your people to assert something that's innate, inherent, God-given, part of their very fabric of their being, and they're asserting it. And now, thankfully, hopefully more so with the Liberty Dialogues, and we can talk about that, they'll be more prepared to do battle. So let me do this. And I'm very grateful for your time, and I want to continue the conversation at another time. Are there any observations or questions or comments you want to make before we close this video?
No, except the fact that now I just want to write this down without having to. I know I'll get the recording, but I just want to write this down because I'm doing some work today. So, first one is authority. Okay. The next one is jurisdiction.
Right.
We use our affidavit of standing at the beginning. Right. It states in the document that I've got. This is the one that I sent you. The self-governance presentment. Agent first. Our status, capacity, and identity. I haven't expanded. I've made sure that I expanded our standing in all the documents now. Listening to the way you present it, it makes it so clean. You've got to do it. So jurisdiction, authority, jurisdiction, or not obligation. Next, which one's the next? Status, standing, obligation, enforcement. And I'm going to send you the chat that we just did with ChatGPT. Yep. Now, George, let me know when you're done. Enforcement. I haven't seen that one from you. That's good. Now, George, if now I can turn around and add that to my program today and play around with it. Very good. And I'm going to email you directly after this call with what we discussed. I'm going to make an invitation to you. If you send me your documents that you're using, I would like to run them through the Liberty Dialogues framework on my platform and send you all of the recommendations. I did that for a lady on the East Coast recently who was contending with the communist state of Connecticut in the United States with respect to the vaccine schedule. And the bottom line with the vaccine schedule within the communist state of Connecticut is that the legislator was circumventing the process and delegating and giving away their authority to an administrative representative to call the shots on what vaccines would be given and when. In a matter of hours, I produced some 50 to 100 pages covering the gamut of federal law, state law, Supreme Court, state precedent, federal precedent, the rights of a person's body, and just gave her all the information to prevail against the state. I don't know what she's going to do with it. But I want to do the same with you and see if the information I give you is different. We still have the issue of the jab and everything. But we've got some amazing. We've got one guy called Wayne Glue, who is actually a police prosecutor, and he is one of the few people who is a member of the Crown of England who's been granted so high. His authority is so high that the police can't touch him. Right. They can't arrest him because they will cause themselves more trouble. And he calls the politicians pigs, and he abuses them on live on YouTube,
There
and
you
they
go.
cannot go for defamation character because he's untouchable virtually.
Well, that's excellent.
And
George.
so he studied. Yeah, so go on.
No, I want to see if there is anything else that you want to address before we close.
No, it's all good. I'll process this. I'll go and have lunch with my wife and then come back and do some work this afternoon. And I've got a list of one of the things that one of my members uses the fiduciary duty challenge, and she has got, because she uses it for the last 5 years, she's like a what do you call barbarian, Hungarian, one of the barbarians that fought the Romans. And she goes around and fights politicians, judges, magistrates. And she'll go, she just came back from a court the other day and put the fiduciary duty on the magistrate and the registrar. And they applied there, and they were more lenient because of her than if she hadn't been there.
All right.
So
that's good. That's good to hear.
So I will actually compile a couple of things and then resend you a document using your stuff with added couple of little added things that I've got.
I did mention the 500,000 foot level on how to impact Australia, America, and even globally as the Liberty Dialogues are being applied. There are people in Australia that subscribe to Yes to Hell With, and I'd like to connect them with you. And I'd like to see this grow in Australia, because there really seems to be some momentum in Australia because of how austere things are there. Yep. So first of all, I'm going to send you some names if you don't mind. And then I invite you to look at your lessons learned as a coach, as somebody who's leading people in how to implement this country by country and to grow the movement, as it were. Yep. So any thoughts you have, please send them to me, okay?
Definitely, yep. And
I appreciate that.
And I'll put some couple of I'll do some recordings of the testimonials of how we've succeeded using the stuff we're using with, plus the Liberty Dialogue.
Yeah, I will use them on the videos. If you do that, that would be great. Written in audio form, I think that's powerful. I've got some great content coming up, and people are jazzed. They are really excited about the success from our calls. And now that they're going to hear about you in Australia and people, at the local level, empowering people, it's going to be, I think, very, very encouraging for people. So I want to close by saying thank you for your time, sir. I really genuinely appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing, and let's collaborate more. I'd like to know how I can help you out.
I'd love to. And I will make this statement to anyone watching. We are real. We are live.
There you go. Well, that is excellent. George, have a great lunch with your wife and give her my regards, and we'll be thinking about you guys, okay?
Thank you. And remember, we are blessed and highly favored.
Excellent.
Okay.
Be well, sir. Thank you very much, George.
Pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.